recently did a petrol sedan comparison wherein we had the new Honda City, the updated Hyundai Verna and the Volkswagen Vento. Now in that comparison, it was the new Honda City that edged out just a bit ahead of the Hyundai Verna and took the top spot. Now the reason you're seeing me with the new City again is because this time around we're checking how the Honda City is in its diesel avatar.
You can't just talk about the City and not talk about its closest rival, the Hyundai Verna. In our previous comparison, the Honda City Petrol only edged over its rival. But on paper, it is the Verna that actually outperforms the City in many aspects. But let's see if what's on paper translates on the road.
Now let's kick off the debate first with the design. Now, as far as looks are concerned, the all-new City is very different from the older gen, and that's because it's a new generation, of course. The first thing you'll notice, like I've said earlier, is that the new City looks like a smaller Civic, and that's a good thing. Now, if you look at the front, it's got the trademark chrome grille, which you see on many new Honda cars, and beyond that, there are sharp LED headlamps. Even the tail lamps at the rear look quite nice. And the overall design of the City is very premium. It looks a lot more elegant than the earlier version. It is a design that is not trying to scream or prove anything to anyone. It's a very refined design, and I think this is a car that looks modern, it looks premium, and of course, being the longest car in its segment, it also has a very good road presence.
Now that is all good if you're old like Arpit and you like something like the City. But if you're a little more youthful and you prefer to be a little more loud and out there, then the Verna with its sharper styling, especially offering a lot more options when you compared to the variants. This diesel gets a different, more elegant and yet sharper front grille, which is, instead of being blacked out, this gets a little more brushed aluminium sort of a look. It's not chrome, but it looks very elegant and sharp. The headlamps are also sharply designed, and they're also LEDs, and the tail lamps are pretty much derived from the older gen. They look pretty much nice, and they're also LEDs. The wheels are also really nice, doing 16-inch wheels, and overall that youthful appearance, if that's something that you're looking for, like I am as a youth, I'm probably gonna go for the Verna. And if that's what you're looking for, the Verna might be the one for you. Now, like we mentioned earlier, the Verna offers a few more styling choices when it comes to the diesel and the petrol and the turbo models. For the diesel, you get a black and beige dual tone combination for the seats and the entire interior, which makes it a little more airy and a little more openness to the cabin. Then you get this new touchscreen, which is an 8-inch system like the City, but the quality of the screen is, in my opinion, much better, and the graphics are much clearer, and the quality and the colors are more vibrant. However, the City's reversing camera is slightly better, I will have to admit. When it comes to other features, the front passenger and the driver get cooled seats, which the City does not, and the Verna also offers a wireless charging pad. Sunroof is given on both the models, and you do get driver instrument clusters which are digital in both cars. Now, the Achilles heel in the Verna is, I'll have to admit, the legroom. With the driver's seat in my position, it's not good news, of course, I will have to admit. So it's predominantly for people who are sitting in the front in this car. However, compared to the turbo with the all-black interior, with the beige and black combination, you get a little more airiness into the cabin. It feels a little more brighter, so it feels much nicer to be here. You get the air vents at the back, you get the one single charging socket, you have a rear armrest with cup holders and a sunblind with 2 headrests, and that's pretty much it.
Once inside the cabin of the new City, the experience is quite different from the one that you get in the new Verna. first things, the dashboard. Again, now here what you get is a very nicely laid out dashboard. It's got a dual tone interior, the wooden finish is rich, the softest material is good, and of course the center stage of attraction is the new infotainment system in the middle. Now this is an updated infotainment system, and unlike the older City, this is nice, and this is a connected car, so you get a lot of connectivity features. Simple, it's the same what you get in the Verna, so you can do a lot of things using your smartphone as a remote for the car. But beyond that, the system itself, if you talk about the touchscreen, it's a good touchscreen and the touch response is nice. The user interface is simple. However, the overall experience is slightly less fluid than what you get in the Verna. Well, that's an edge for the Verna there. But beyond that, again, it's a nicely laid out interior. I have no complaint in terms of build quality or material finish quality. One thing which is really nice in the City, better than the Verna, is the instrument cluster. Now both have digital instrument clusters, but the one in the City has a better layout, and that means the visibility for all the available data is much better, unlike the confusing layout in the Verna. So it's a lot clearer here, and you also have at least the layout of an analog speedometer. So looks good, and of course is easy to decipher in terms of information. Seats are good. I think there's not any advantage that a certain car holds over each other. Both get good seats. The seats in the City are nice, spacious, the cushioning is good, the support is good, and of course in terms of space as well, there's a lot of practical storage space available inside the City, be it the door pockets, be it the lower center console, or even the driver armrest. So on all that accounts, it is a nice package that you get. Of course, like Rahul said earlier, sunroof is a common feature in both the cars, and that just adds to the overall premium factor of these sedans. Now beyond this, there are a few more advantages that the City offers over the Verna. Now to start with, one is the blind spot monitor that you get on the left side. It's a camera integrated into the ORVM, so that's a nice feature. Every time you give the left turn indicator, you get the display from the camera on the screen, so that's a good added safety feature. Even if you talk about the rear parking camera, the resolution of the City's camera is a tad better than that on the Verna. However, the Verna gives you dynamic grid lines, whereas on the City you get static grid lines only. The other advantage you have here with the City, I'm not sure if it's an advantage, but the added feature is Alexa connectivity that you get with this infotainment system. That means you can use Alexa devices beyond just your phone or your infotainment system to connect with the car and execute commands. So it's a good to have feature, but I wouldn't say it's a must have feature. So these are pretty much the advantages that the City offers over the Verna when you're in the front seat. Now, if it is the rear seat that matters a lot to you, well, this is specifically where the City just zooms past the Verna, and that is because of the sheer space that the new City offers. Now, of course, the City is a much longer car, despite the fact that the wheelbase hasn't changed from the older gen, but you do get a lot of legroom. Now you can see that at 5 feet 8 inches of height, I have so much legroom to spare. The other good thing is that while I can slide my feet under the driver's seat, even the footboard is slightly inclined, and that means better comfort over longer journeys. The seat itself is quite nice, the backrest angle is nice, and the cushioning is quite good. So you do get a good comfortable seat with practical storage options all around, and of course you do have connectivity options in form of two 12-volt power sockets, rear air conditioning vents. These are all things that make the City a much more comfortable car when it comes to rear cabin experience. In terms of headroom too, again, I do not have any complaints, and people taller than me also should find this place comfortable. Now, one thing that is a segment first and good in terms of safety is the fact that in the City you do get a 3-point seat belt at the rear, which no other car in this segment has. So that's added safety for a third occupant. Of course, there's also this floor which is relatively flat with a small hump in the center, and that again means more comfort for the third occupant if you have one. The boot again in the City is a bit larger than that on the Verna, so that means extra storage space as well. So yes, from a cabin perspective, if space and comfort is your prerogative, then of course it is the city which undoubtedly wins the day. When driving the all-new City in its diesel format, the driving experience that you get is quite balanced. That means it's neither sporty, but at the same time, it doesn't feel underpowered or lethargic as well. So, well, if you look at the numbers in terms of power or the torque output, the City is a bit down compared to the updated Verna. The Verna, of course, has more power and feels more sporty to drive. The City, on the other hand, is a car that delivers a completely hassle-free driving experience from point A to point B, if that is what you're looking for. As far as the engine is concerned, this is the same unit that was found in the earlier gen City, but now of course it has been upgraded to comply with BS6 emission norms, and but beyond that there's not much of a change. This is the same ID Tech engine from Honda's Earth Dreams portfolio, and while Honda has worked a lot on the NVH insulation, the overall noise, vibration and harshness levels inside the City's cabin are not as low as that in the updated Verna. So there is still a fair bit of diesel clatter that filters inside the cabin, and even when you're stationary or driving, or even when you're accelerating, the diesel clatter is always there. So that is an area where it does score a little less than the Verna. Of course, in terms of driving, the power is adequate, like I said. So once you have passed about 1800 RPM, that is when you get a decent surge of acceleration, but there is not enough power to really shove you back in the seat. That doesn't happen here. So if you are about 1500 RPM or under that, you need to wait for the turbo to spool up, which happens at about 1800 RPM. Now the 6-speed manual gearbox paired to this engine, again it's a good unit. The gearbox is easy to use, the throws are short, and the ratios are again well matched to the engine, which means drivability is quite nice in the City. And as a result of that, when you're driving in dense traffic conditions, you do not have to downshift frequently. So that is a good thing about the City. And as far as high speed ability is concerned, well, reaching highway speeds is not a problem for the City at all. You can easily reach triple digit speeds and maintain it, and it'll have just about enough power for you to execute that occasional overtaking maneuver on the highway if you want to do it in a quick manner. Now, digging further into the specifics of the NVH that I just talked about, the NVH levels, well, we drove the City and Verna over the same stretch of road under the same conditions, and at about driving from a standstill to 50 kilometers per hour in 4th gear, and then cruising at that speed for some time and coming to a stop. Now, during that duration, the decibel reading inside the cabin in this seat, the driver's seat for the Honda City, is 63.4 decibels, and that is slightly higher than the decibel reading of the Verna. So that's about the driving experience. Now let's talk about the ride and handling. Now, as far as ride quality is concerned, I think this is an area where the City has always been good at, and the new City just takes the game further. So the ride quality in the new City is quite nice. It's a supple ride quality that you get, and that's the reason why, if you're someone looking for a chauffeur driven car, there is not much of a competition in this segment. The City clearly is one of the best cars in that department. So yes, overall, in terms of ride quality, I don't think there's much of a complaint or a shortcoming that I can point out in the new City. Now, as far as handling is concerned, again, the handling is pretty much neutral. So the City is not a car in its diesel format that you would really want to throw around corners, and that is primarily because it doesn't have the kind of power to really give you that sporty feeling. But yes, if you do go around corners, the City is a stable car. Even at high speeds on the highway, there is not much of a reason to complain. However, once you get in the higher triple digit speeds, the City does start to feel a bit wavy. That's primarily because of the softer suspension setup, but that only happens once you cross about 135, 140 kilometers per hour. But till then, things are pretty much planted and absolutely hassle-free. And now on to fuel efficiency, which is one of the most important factors for a lot of buyers in this segment. Now, in these diesel variants that we are testing, it is the City that has a slight advantage over the Verna based on our testing figures. Now, the City has been able to return about 18.4 kilometers to a liter of diesel to us, which is slightly higher than that on the Verna. And that is also down to the fact that, of course, the engine is less powerful, so that is one key reason. But beyond that, even the tires on the City are 185 section compared to the 195 section rubber on the Verna. So while that does compromise a bit of cornering, it does aid fuel efficiency on the other hand.
Now it is behind the wheel where the Verna diesel actually shines its brightest against its rival, the City. The engine is a 1.5 litre unit which produces a lot more power, 113 horsepower and 250 Newton meters of torque, which is also more than the City. Now this diesel engine is offered with a 6-speed manual transmission. There is an automatic available, but there is none offered on the City, which is also a plus point for the Verna. Now when it comes to performance from the engine, the power delivery is very immediate. The torque kicks in at just 1500 RPM, so you're never looking for acceleration from the car. However, having said that, when you are at lower speeds, the low end could have been a little bit better. As far as the clutch actuation goes, it is a little bit snappy and the gear lever is a bit notchy to shift. Now, if you do get used to how the Verna needs to be driven with the clutch and the gear lever, then you're probably not going to want to drive the City. Other than that, the refinement from the motor is very nice. In the decibel test that Arpit and I conducted, the Verna actually came out on top with 62 dB for the Verna in terms of noise. There is a little bit of noticeable vibration that you can get, especially at the lower RPMs in the Verna, but it's not something that would bother you in the long run. Now the steering system in the Verna is an electronic power steering system. It offers decent amount of feedback, but that could have been better. However, it is actually quite direct. So throwing it into corners and leaning on those tires is not very difficult, and it is actually pretty engaging to drive. But especially at low speeds, I would have preferred more feedback from the steering, and that is a little bit of a shame. In terms of ride quality, I actually prefer the Verna because that the underlying firmness in the suspension setup of the Verna allows it to settle down much easier than it is available in the softly sprung City. So driving it is actually more comfortable to be using the Verna at higher speeds, whereas it can be a little bit bouncy in the City, so which is why I prefer the Verna.
And now it's time for the final verdict that all of you have been waiting for. Now, before we give out the final verdict, well, it is the price that matters a lot to any buyer in any segment. And as far as prices are concerned, which you can see for the diesel variants on your screen right now, there is not like too much to decide between both of them. They are both comparatively priced cars. Now, the last time around we picked these cars for the petrol models, it was the City that came out on top, and that was primarily because of the additional space the City offers. But these are diesel cars and a completely different driving experience and some changes inside the car as well. So what's the result like this time? Well, let's ask Rahul, who will give us the final tally and the scores.
While on the previous occasion the City edged over the Verna, this time around, because of the more powerful and torquey engine that the Verna has to offer, it is this car that actually wins this battle. Because the shortcomings from the previous occasion where we tested both of these cars, the shortcomings have been compensated for them with that engine, and it is a gem of an engine when it rivals the less powerful motor from the City.
So there you have it. As far as the petrol cars are concerned, it is the City which in our opinion you should go for, but as far as the diesel variants are concerned, it is the Verna which takes home the victory for the day.